This is the Tom Bigby Tales, and I'm your host, Shannon Evans. I write about a small town in northeast Mississippi called Columbus, and sometimes I write about the rest of the state. This episode is titled In the Shadows of the Sharecropper's Plantation, the Murder of Alfred Borders. In the sweltering heat of a late July evening in 1881, a dark tale of murder was about to unfold on the Nick Hairston plantation near Crawford, Mississippi. This is a story of domestic tension, betrayal, and a crime that would shock the Lowndes County community. The late 19th century southern United States was a landscape of profound social transformation. Following the Civil War, the sharecropping system emerged as a complex economic arrangement that often perpetuated cycles of poverty, and it did perpetuate racial inequality. Sharecroppers like Alfred Borders existed in a precarious social and economic position, trapped between historical oppression and emerging social structures. Alfred Borders represented a typical sharecropper of his era. Borders began working the land in the post-Civil War South. These agricultural workers typically received a portion of their crop's value in exchange for working landowners' property. The system was inherently exploitive, often keeping families like the Borders in perpetual economic debt. It was into this system that he married his second wife, Lena, and their relationship was fraught with tension. The children from his first marriage became a source of constant conflict between the couple. How does a disagreement like this about family and children escalate to murder? Let's dive a little deeper. On that fateful evening, Alfred and Lena walked through the old slave quarters, now converted to what was called sharecropper cabins. What happened next would become a gruesome local legend. According to conflicting news reports, either Lena or her alleged accomplice, Jeff Wooten, struck Alfred first with a weapon, described variously as a stick, a club, or an axe. Then the second person joined in. The details, however blurred, indicate the same outcome, and they were both tragically clear. Alfred lay dead, and the body was disposed of quickly in a cistern on the property. But secrets rarely stay buried in small communities, especially on a farm like the Hairston place. The body was found, and the Crawford sheriff's deputies soon arrived. The local justice system of 1881 Mississippi operated under complex and very discriminatory legal frameworks. This would be a rapid investigation followed by immediate confessions, and those confessions were usually beat out of the alleged assailants. And then there was the problem of a woman being one of the murderers and her gender. It was into this environment that it is not shocking that both Lena and Jeff reportedly confessed immediately to the crime. Now, papers at that time, when they were arrested, described them in two different ways. They were either they were described in an infantile type of, they were ignorant of what they had done, or they were described as brutes. This was very typical of the time, and it was very much a time where Blacks were considered less than and dehumanized. In November of 1881, the same year of the murder, justice moved very swiftly in the courtroom. The jury, at the conclusion of a very short trial that spent just 10 minutes deliberating before returning with a unanimous guilty verdict for both. They were both sentenced for execution. However, there was a problem. Wooten, of course, there was no problem in ordering his execution, but Lena presented a unique challenge because she was pregnant. The local papers at the time oscillated between describing the accused as pitiful or as monstrous, and her pregnancy complicated her sentence and preventing her immediate execution. The murder represented more than an individual crime in this time. It clearly was a reflection of the systemic social pressures and the manifestation of economic desperation. The murders and rapid conviction were further symptoms of a broader societal dysfunction of the era. However, we're still left with some unresolved questions. What drove the murderous act? Was Lena that distraught over having extra mouths to feed now that she was expecting her own child? Was she in a relationship with Wooten and she needed her husband out of the way? Was the child Wooten's child, or was the child Borders' child? What were the societal structures that contributed to this violence? Was it a case of extreme poverty and Lena was so destitute and so overwhelmed while pregnant that she thought the only answer was to murder her husband. We don't know. No more so than we know what became of Lena and her unborn child. Now, this case illuminates quite a few things for us. It shows Civil War, post-Civil War social tensions between the Black community and between the Black and the white community. It clearly elaborates on and illustrates economic marginalization of sharecroppers, and it also gives us a window into some of the complex family dynamics of Lena and Alfred, but it also shows us some of the evolving legal frameworks of the time. This story reminds us of the complex social dynamics of this post-Civil War South, where personal tensions often did erupt into violence and where justice was often swift but not always clear. Mississippi was still very much the Wild West at this time, and it was lawless, or there was a lot of vigilantism under the auspices of public deputization of white males in the community. While this story fades into historical obscurity because we don't know what became of Lena and her unborn child, we don't know where Wooten is buried, and we are not really sure where Alfred Borders is buried. We also don't know is what drove this couple into such a desperate act. While Jeff Wooten, Lena Borders, and Alfred Borders are not even footnoted in local history, what we are left with are the mysteries of history, and that they remain just that. They are mysteries. Some things are very difficult to research and to uncover in Black history in the American South. This case demonstrates even more so in that we don't know what the final resting places of any of these three people are. I want to thank you for coming on my podcast, The Tom Bigby Tales. This is Shannon Evans. Until next time.